If somebody wanted to be a social worker, what would you tell them the challenges are?
So at one point, I was working 3 jobs.
You've done some of everything dealing with young kids, teenage kids at group home, middle-aged adult parents, and the elderly.
After working for one of the local Department of Social Services, I had a great opportunity to work for the schools. And then I became a school social worker. Me develop into the person that I am. So that way I'm not looking at life through one lens, because
Yep.
that's not the way that I see life now, so to speak.
Yeah. Can you give your definition of hospice? Just a quick one since you're a social worker. Hey, what's going on? This is Charles with the Chadwick Experiences radio show. I'm doing this for WDRB Media. I'm so thankful with this radio station. I'm able to express my views and talk about life, colleges, career choices, things of that nature. But I'm gonna get right to it. Today's guest is actually my family. She's my bigger sister, so a lot of the ways I live my life now, she has been influential. And I just want to welcome my older sister, Jessica, to my radio show, Chadwick Experiences.
Hi, everyone.
Just to give a little summary of what my sister does, she's actually a social worker. One interesting fact, even though we're brothers and sisters, we actually worked together one time at a middle school. She was the school's social worker. I was the school resource officer. So we kept it very professional. I don't think anybody would have known we were brothers and sisters. We really didn't get seen talking much, but that's one fun fact. And another fun fact, we lived in the same subdivision. We bought houses in the same subdivisions, kind of like during that time when, houses were foreclosure. So we're family, but it wasn't like we were butt buddies or anything like that. But it just so happened, this is my big sister. And today we're going to talk about social work, also her pathway. Why did she go to college? And kind of give some information to the next generation of social workers if a person chooses to be in that field. So I just want to ask you, big sis, I remember in high school in 1998, you did band, you traveled a lot. What reason did you go to college, or did you think about the military or anything else? Tell me that pathway from high school. I remember you graduated in 98.
So I knew for a fact that I didn't want to join the military, so that was completely out. And in our family, I was a soon-to-be first-time graduate from a college. Our parents didn't go to college,
Yep.
And it was kind of branded to us, okay, when you go to high school, you need to be doing something. So the only thing that I thought that I needed to do was to go to college because, hey, that's what everybody else was doing. So to be quite honest, I actually applied to one school, and I was like, if I don't get in, then college is not for me. So I applied to UNCC, University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and actually got in. So I was like, okay, this is actually going to be real. I'm going to be going to college. But I made it in my mind that I was going to do 4 years and 4 years only. I didn't want to extend my college years because at the time, our dad was the sole provider, and I just didn't want to put that financial burden on him. So that was my goal. When I initially started to go to school, I knew for a fact I didn't want to do nursing. I don't want to see a lot of blood. I knew I didn't want to do engineering. I didn't want to do a lot of math. And I kind of just narrowed it down. I didn't want to become a teacher, but I knew that I need to be somewhere doing something, helping somebody. And so I fell into the social work field, and I've been in here ever since I've graduated.
And I noticed that you love helping people. Would you think that was from our background? I remember, we went to church, and I'm not religious, but they would always have us at rest homes and, just giving back to the community. Was there any other major that you wanted to potentially go in? What narrowed it down?
No, no, not really. Of course, that was a contributing factor, but I also think my personality and just my character and who I am and who I've evolved to be is helping people. Like, I get excited more so helping people rather than doing things for myself. I love to serve, even to this day. It don't have to be in the capacity of social work, but just serving people, finding out what people need and making sure that I have resources, or I can be resourceful for people pretty much. And so I knew for a fact, just going into college and even in my high school, I'm always doing something serving people. I was always part of clubs. I was already, as you already mentioned, in church. serving people. So I knew for a fact that that is definitely the lane that I need to be in.
And up until that college point, what were some of the things you were doing in high school? One thing I remember is your little, it looked like an apron to me, but it was like red and white, the candy
Yeah.
stripe, volunteering at the
I started
hospital.
candy striping, and even to this day, I still have my candy striping outfit. It's packed somewhere, but I still have that. So I started off in the hospital. Then, of course, being a part of different clubs. Oh my goodness, you make me think all the way back. It's like over 20 something years. I know in some of my clubs that we went out and we helped people. And then even in college and being a tour guide, I've actually spent some of my spring breaks going to different states helping people as well. So it's always been in me, and I don't think it's ever left.
Okay, let's talk about the college experience, because here at Chadwick Experiences, you know, my biggest goal is to just share these experiences to help the next generation. So one
Right.
thing I do remember too, if out of all the jobs you've ever worked, I kind of remember, I think you did Candy Stripe, that was volunteer work. You did KFC for a long time.
Mhm,
You
for a
also
very long
did
time.
Allstate Insurance. And
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken, you was a cashier at Piggly Wiggly.
Yes,
You had a lot of work experience
I
before
did.
college. You also worked during college. Same way with
Yeah.
me. Parents made us work. So I want to talk about that and we'll get back to the college. But I just want to paint a picture of the
Mhm.
experiences you had.
Yeah, so my very, very first job was at KFC. And then from KFC, I went to Piggly Wiggly for a very short time back in our hometown. Then I went back to KFC. And then actually, as I mentioned before, I went to college up here in Charlotte. And believe it or not, I stayed with KFC. I think I stayed with KFC for almost nine or 10 years. But while I was in college, I was working at KFC. I was working at Allstate. And then I also had like a part-time job at the college, doing a couple hours. So at one point I was working 3 jobs. I think it's always been in us, AKA thanks to our father, instilling a strong work ethic and making sure that we work for what we have and work for what we want. So I've always worked to help contribute to paying for college and not having that weight on my parent. And then after I finished with college, I was still at KFC for a little bit. And then my very first job outside of college, I actually worked in a group home right outside of Charlotte. And I think during that time I was still working at KFC part-time. And I think my first actual social work position started off with this nonprofit. And I was with them for almost, I believe, 3 or 4 years. In that nonprofit, we work with helping disadvantaged young adults pursue their high school or GED program. And then at that time, I decided, okay, I think I want to pursue or further my education. So again, I applied to one school, got into ECU, and then I came back home, and then I worked for one of the local Department of Social Services close to our area. And I think I did that for 4.5 years. And then I decided to come back to around the Charlotte area. No, I apologize. So after working for one of the local Department of Social Services, I had a great opportunity to work for the schools. And then I became a school social worker. So yeah, and then from school social working, I came and moved up to Charlotte, and now I'm actually working with adults.
So pretty much between your transition, it's kind of like you've done some of everything, dealing with young kids, teenage kids at group home, middle-aged adult parents, and the elderly, all within that social work.
Well, not necessarily. I think in my social work career, I primarily have worked with children.
Okay.
Children from the ages of 0 to 17, 18. I still consider even beyond the age of 18. So there was a point in time where I was working with youth up to the age of 22, 24, around that time frame. So I want to say maybe majority of my social work experience is working with children and their families, of course.
And I just want to go back about the KFC thing. I am a comedian, so I have to tell the truth about something. Me and my brother, when my sister was working, we were probably in probably elementary school or middle school. We would always stay up late, like 11 o'clock, and we would be looking down the hall when my sister come in. She would be bringing us like old tenders and biscuits. And finally, my sister's like, "You guys are just staying up because I'm free." And that was just one little funny thing I remember about your work experience, even though we're a couple years apart. But one thing I do want to say, would you say all of those jobs before you went to college actually help you manage college life? I can straight up say, by me having a job at Church's Chicken, working with dad plumbing business before I went to college, it really caused me to mature up and not be stressed out with college. I didn't have any difficult like balancing life, college life.
I think my work experience have helped prepared me for college. For one, it helped, well, where we grew up, we grew up among family. Family was everywhere, so we really didn't have the opportunity to really grow up in various communities, or communities that may not look like us or have the same traditions as us, because we primarily live among family of aunts, uncles, cousins, and great aunts and grandmas and grandparents and all who's connected to us. So I think being able to actually leave the home life to actually work and go to work in a different environment allowed me to kind of see the world outside of my zip code, and where I live at, and kind of see how other people live and how they do life. That also helped prepare me with understanding cultural differences. Also being able to communicate, because not everybody communicate the way that we communicate in our family. Also, it helped me with conflict resolution, the way we process things and the way that we handle difficult situations was kind of different than what I saw at a work job, at a job, or even in college. So I'm thankful for those experiences, because it kind of helped, like you had mentioned, develop and help. It helped me develop into the person that I am. So that way I'm not looking at life through one lens, because that's not the way that I see life now, so to speak.
Within that field of social work, I kind of saw it with you or other people we knew who were social workers, with the stress of, kids and separation of family. I do have to go to that subject with you. If somebody wanted to be a social worker, what would you tell them the challenges are, to see where you're in a position where you can separate somebody's family, and you wouldn't want to, because that seems so normal, but for the well-being of that child and things of that nature, how did you learn to manage that? And I know it's not something that you could just cut it on and off like a light switch.
No. I do want to say that, when people hear the word social worker, they automatically think that I'm coming to snatch your kids. But what's really awesome about the field of social work is that you can do so many things in so many different communities. You can work with individuals, you can work in groups, you can work in communities. So it's just not working at your local DSS office and going into homes and taking people's kids. Even through the local Department of Social Services, there's still other departments that helps bring services to the community. So it's just not foster care or adoption. But to answer your question, how did I prepare to do that though? Because there was times where I had to.
That's because this comes with the job, and I want if somebody wanted to be a social worker, I know this is something that they have to factor in.
Not necessarily, because it depends on the path that they take. I mean, because you can do medical social work, you can do school social work, you can work in the community side.
Explain some of those variations of social work so my listeners could understand it. Even me, all I've ever known was
right, because you're associated with the Department of Social Services. But as a social worker, like as I mentioned before, you can work in various communities, and you can work with various populations. You can work in substance abuse, those who are currently struggling in maintaining their sobriety. You can work with people who are aging, whether that's being in a nursing home or working in a community level, or working in nonprofit. You can work in a medical social worker, being medical social work, working in a hospital. You can do school social work. You can work in a local Department of Social Services. I mean, you can actually go into practice yourself if you have the right credentials and the right license. You can work in college, or I'm sorry, you can work at a college, if you have the right credentials and the right qualifications. I mean, there's so many different avenues that you can take in social work.
Got you. What qualities do you think it takes to have that skill set? And just to share my truth, there was a time period during the pandemic, I didn't work for the first time ever in my life. I thought it would be fun to take a break. I think I might even got bored or depressed. I can honestly say we are all meant to be doing some type of work, even if it's not money. And what
Mhm.
that led me to do was I became a hospice volunteer. I was
Okay.
just looking at ways. I said, how can I help my community? And it's been so rewarding to sit with somebody or a family as they're getting ready to transition, and you're able to just be there with that person. That person wants somebody to be with them in those long times. So even me, I don't know if that's social work, but I can say when you give back to somebody, it is very, very rewarding. Not so much in monetary or money, but just to see another human, another person, their soul, their energy to be with them. So what type of person would you say that it takes? I know it takes patience to be a social worker.
It does take patience, because you also have to be patient with the family or the individual that you're working with, because they may be coming to you with layers of
Yeah.
problems or issues or concerns, and sometimes they may not be able to express what they need, and you may have to be patient until they do. In the field of social work, we always know we need to start where the family is or start where the individual is. So wherever that person is, that's where I need to start with them to help them find the resources or the help that they need. But also, you need patience with yourself.
Yeah.
Social work is forever changing. You could be doing it this way, and then next year there's a new effective way in addressing your clients or the families that you're working with. You have to be patient because you're working with people. People come from different walks of life. So the way that you work with Mr. Bob, 2 weeks ago may not be the way that you work with Mr. Bill that's coming through your door. So you have to be patient with yourself as you're learning and give yourself grace. You may not always get it right, but what's really cool about what I do is that I'm always learning. So just because I've been in the field for 10 or 15 years doesn't mean that doesn't mean that I know everything. And that I have everything that I need to help the client that's walking through my door. I may have to do some research. I may have to collaborate with my colleagues. I may have to go back to my textbook. I mean, there's so many different ways of resources that I may need to pull from to ensure that I'm helping that particular individual the best way that I can. But other characteristics I think that might be helpful for anyone that's looking to become a social worker, I hope they do. I welcome you into the field. It is fun. It is rewarding. It can be challenging, but as social workers, we help each other. We are an army to be reckoned with. We help each other for the betterment of our clients and the families and the communities that we serve. So one thing one skill that you definitely want to have is empathy. Put yourself in that person's shoes, because there's always a reason why people behave or think the way that they do, and sometimes it can be challenging to find out what that real issue is. But you have to have empathy. You can't really help someone if you really don't know how to start with them. Of course, being able to communicate and have effective communication, knowing how to reach your client, not only how to reach your client, but how to find the resources, how to advocate for what you need and for what that client needs, will be very beneficial as a skill set that you will need to acquire to be successful in the field of social work. Definitely have to be organized. You're going to be
Paperwork,
multitasking a
appointment,
lot, and you can
visit.
walk through the door and have a things to do list, or and when you walk through the door, it's cut in half because something else is on fire that you have to go address, or there's a crisis going on, or just something happens that you may not have on your things to do list. So you definitely need to be organized, because sometimes you will be multitasking, helping several clients at once, or doing different tasks on your job. So you got to definitely be organized. And then, as we mentioned before, having patience, and also just being committed to learning more about social work, learning what are the new techniques, what are the new strategies, what is a new way of how you can help the clients or the families that you're working with. What's new out there, and challenge yourself to learn that, and to kind of stretch yourself a little bit, and not have this cookie cutter approach of how you're going to help the people that you work with. Be creative. You have to think outside the box, and you have to be willing to be the student sometimes, not always being the one in the role of teaching others, but you have to also be taught yourself and be
Wow.
open to new ideas and new experiences, which again is going to help the families and the individuals you work with in the long run. And of course, during the pandemic, all the social workers that may be listening to this know the next two words I'm about to say is self-care. You hear about burnout, you hear about, working too much, too many hours in the field of social work, taking work home because, there's so many things you didn't get done between the 8 to 5 time frame. Just making sure that you're carving out time for self-care, that you're taking care of yourself. So that way you can be a better help and be able to help others. If you're able to take care of yourself, then you can take care of others. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think that sums it up. If you're able to take care of yourself, then you can definitely take care of others for sure. Well, this is so good. We're going to take a radio break and then we're going to have you back on. Again, this is my older sister, Jessica. She's a social worker, has always been dedicated to that field. And I just want to share her experiences if we have any listeners out there that may want to get into the social work field. We'll be right back after this commercial. All right, welcome back to the Chadwick Experiences radio show. If you missed the first half, you missed out on a lot of gems and information about social work. I have my older sisters up here and she's just giving us information. What's that pathway like? What does it consist of being a social work? And now this is the second part, which is closer to our ending. So to pick back up where we're at, the biggest thing why I do what I do, big sister, you already know this, but this is more so for the listeners, is that I really want to explain our experiences so that when they get ready, whether it's college, military, join a trade, or start a business, or just take a break from college and not work, take a year off after high school, travel the world, whatever, is that other people's experiences can help you. So if a person want to go down the social work pathway, what avenue do they have to take? I know it starts definitely with a 4-year bachelor's degree, but if they wanted to go into private practice, what all would they have to do? How do you go about getting your own practice as a social worker?
Right. And I would even encourage individuals who are thinking about social work, you really won't know if you really want to do it until you get in there and do it. So even at a high school, even if we have middle school listeners, I would encourage you to volunteer. That's a start. To know more about people, to know whether or not you want to help people, to know what type of field you might be interested in. Find different ways to volunteer, whether that's through your local church, you're working in the children's ministry, whether you do become a candy striper in your local area or town, whether you work at the Boys and Girls Club during the summer, whether you, as you had mentioned, Charles, whether or not you help someone that's going through hospice right now.
And for my listeners, even if everybody should know, but can you give your definition of hospice? Just a quick one, since you're a social worker. Just what is it?
Well, from my understanding is when someone is coming to the end of their life, and as you mentioned before, is getting ready to transition and to kind of help them through that process, whether that's to help relieve pain or to be a comforter during those last days, weeks, or even hours. Hospice is available to provide that care and assistance. And of course, there's social workers in that field as well that assist the family and that individual. And so there's a team that works with that individual and family. So there's so many different ways to volunteer. If you know for a fact, hey, I want to not just work one-on-one with individuals, but I want to work on a community level, find those opportunities. Let's start now. Let's not wait until you just go to college. But if once you do some volunteer work, you're like, hey, I think this may be something I want to do, then I encourage you, of course, to go to a 4-year school. And then at that point, I would encourage someone to pursue their master's degree, because in this point of life, now you're going to need a master's in the field of social work. And I'm going to be honest, the money's not always going to be there on a bachelor's or even a master's level. You do need your master's to get to find decent pay. Now, I would encourage individuals who even want to further their education or even their career opportunities is to pursue your license, where you'll be able to work in private practice. You can also do travel social work. I mean, it just opens the gateway for so many more career opportunities. In the field of social work, you have the opportunity to obtain your master's within a year. Once you complete your bachelor's degree, So I would encourage you, any listeners out there, if you're thinking about social worker, if you're thinking about pursuing social work, please consider doing the advanced standing. And what that means is that once you finish your bachelor's, you can pursue your master's. Been out of school for a while, but at the time, I think you have 7 years after obtaining your bachelor's to pursue the advanced standing master's program, which means instead of going to school for 2 years, you finish it up in 1. If you're able to get some work experience while you're pursuing your degree, or complete internships, or even do some volunteer work, I would encourage you to do that, because what you read in a textbook really at times may not describe what you're really going to do working with that individual. Because again, people are coming from all different walks of life, have different needs, have different concerns, have different circumstances. And so the more you get out there and be able to work with various communities and population groups, I think the better you'll be as a social worker and being resourceful to help individuals. And then, of course, if you want to get your license, you will need to get your LCSW, Licensed Clinical Social Work. That's what that stands for, is that you will need to pursue your master's, and then you will have to go before the board and to apply for like your LCSWA, that's like your beginner's license, which with supervision, and you will need to do that for approximately 2 years. And then, which means that you'll be working with someone who is a licensed clinical social worker for 2 years. They'll be giving you guidance and helping you throughout that process. And then once you complete the required hours, then you will need to take the big test. And then once you pass your big test with the LCSW test, then you'll officially become licensed. And then, like I mentioned before, that will open the door for other various career opportunities, or if you prefer, you can also go into private practice. And that's where, you know, you really can make money and you know, pretty much set whatever goals that you want for yourself to be able to help so many more individuals, families, and communities.
Gotcha. Well, thanks so much, Big Sis, for dropping so many gems and knowledge for information. Thank you so much for coming on, you know, my radio show, Chadwick Experiences. Even though you're family, I know if you wasn't, you still would have help it out and talk about social work. One thing I do want to leave our listeners with, what is one experience, and I know it's all confidential, we're not going to ask for no name, but what was one just so fulfilling experience you've had working with a family or a child or an elderly person? Is there any stories that you have to kind of talk how meaningful your work is?
Yeah, there's one particular, I guess, story I can share. And like you mentioned, due to confidentiality, I cannot share a lot of
but just something,
a lot of information about that particular family. But when I first stepped into the social work field, of course, I'm nervous. And again, I ended up receiving a case that was a family that was very challenging and resisted a lot of services and a lot of recommendations. And that was pretty much one of the very first families that I had to work with. And I was super nervous, and I didn't know how to kind of handle or how to address this family, or how to even work with this family, because in speaking with other social workers, this family has been very challenging. And even the family themselves told me they weren't going to work with me. I mean, right out the gate, before I even had an opportunity to introduce myself. But I was persistent in meeting the family where they are, you know, meaning that I would meet the family even if it means they're on the ball field, or I meet the family even if it means we go meet in a Walmart parking lot. I had to make sure that they trust me, because again, as a social worker, you know, oftentimes we're labeled as we're not trustworthy. You know, you're just here to take my kid, or you're just here to tell me I can't receive the service anymore. You're just here to take away something, you know, and that's oftentimes as social workers, we're here to take away something. But I had to gain their trust. And once I gained their trust, I was actually able to work with this particular family for almost 2.5 years, and to see where they were, how much they've grown, to the success story where the problem, the situation was addressed. And to finally, at the very last day of me working with that family, the family shook my hand and smiled. And that was the very first time and me working with this family that I finally I think they finally got it. Like, okay, she's really here to help us, and she's very resourceful, and that I'm not here to wreck their family traditions and their values and what in their experiences, nor was I there to judge them for what took place. I finally, and even though it was only for a brief second, that particular situation still resonates with me even today. And I think about that particular family anytime I'm working with another family that may be challenging, because it's all about trust. They need to know that what you're doing for their family, and you're doing it for them. And not only you're doing it for them, but you're willing to do it with them, and you're willing to do the process with them. So yeah, even now talking about it, like I could see the family's face. I can see where we were when we were sitting across from each other in meetings, and they would roll their eyes and was just so resistful. They were so resistful, didn't want to hear anything I had to say. But over those 2 years, I think the family changed their perspective about me, and likewise I changed my perspective about them. I think that solidified the reason why I'm a social worker to this day. And one experience of working with a family that didn't want to work with me initially, but yet at the end of the process, right, and at the end of the journey, that one smile, I think, changed their perspective overall.
Nice. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. And again, I want to salute you, even though you're my sister, but even outside of that, my understanding now after COVID, and just anybody that provides a service, to me, that's the real MVP of this country, is service, as far as social workers, nurses, teachers, yes, anybody.
Police officers, yes.
Yeah. Firefighter, all of it. EMS workers, like, this is, to me, the real MVP. So thank you for your service. I hope this will impact our future social workers of America. So thanks for doing this with me. This will be the end of Chadwick Experience. And thank you so much, big sis. Much love. And again, salute to all social workers worldwide.
Thanks. Bye, guys. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Chadwick Experiences podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and like. Also, check us out on our website at www.chadwickexperiences.com. We also have books that can help you get a different outlook. Thank you for tuning in.